All right, let's now move to the courts. And the second witness in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, Sgt Patrick Mlungisi Mthethwa, took the stand today. He told the High Court in Pretoria that Kelly Khumalo's mother brought a hat to the attention of the police who arrived on the scene, saying it belonged to one of the perpetrators. There are real concerns that have been exposed today about the timeline on events, who arrived when, and why the area wasn't cordoned off immediately as a crime scene. 5 men, of course, are on trial for the murder of the soccer star. Reporter Silindelo Masikane is in court, and she's been following the story all day. Now, Slee, so second witness, this is Sergeant Thabo Mosia finished yesterday. He's a forensic officer. Today we heard from Sgt Patrick Mlungisi. I wonder if you could place him in context. What is his role in the police? And give us a bit of a timeline from what happened after the shooting. It was just before 9 o'clock on the evening. Who arrived when, or is it not totally clear?
Well, I think that's what we're busy unpacking, because, of course, this is the state's second witness, and a witness, I think, that's giving quite interesting testimony, because this is one of two police officers, Sally, who were the first on the scene. They are the ones who were on duty on the 26th of October 2014. This is Sgt Patrick Mlungisi, as well as a Sgt Mathebula, and we know that Sgt Mlungisi says that they were stationed at the Vosloorus police station. He's been an officer for about 13 years. He was at Vosloorus for about 5 years at the time of the incident, and he says that they clocked in at around 6 p.m. that evening, and at around 5 to 9, just before 9 p.m. that evening, that is when the call came in to the police station that they need to attend to what he described as a shooting in progress. So he says that the police station is not too far from the house, and it was about a 5-minute drive. When they arrived, they were met by a man called Temba, who claimed to be the uncle as well as the brother to Kelly Khumalo's mother, that is Gladness. He says that they could not get much information out of Temba, who, you know, simply said that, look, he was just told to come, secure the premises, lock up, and wait for the police to arrive. He said that those who were in the house had actually proceeded to the hospital. Now, the sound clip you're about to hear, Sally, is that first initial placing of Mthethwa and as well as Mathebula at the crime scene. When they first arrived, they said that they took a look around the premises, went into the house, but not for too long. This is what they observed when they entered the house.
Hey, wawungakubheka ukuthi phela khona okwenzakele lapha, ngoba naye akazi noma kwenzakele phakathi noma ngaphandle, wayengakhuluma into esile. Into engayibona nje hamba amakani amabili, amakani elantingana ini otshwala mangaphosisi kunye.
Because there was nothing that because he didn't know, he didn't know as to whether the incident occurred inside the house or outside the house, and from what we could see inside the house, one couldn't tell whether something had happened there. If I'm not mistaken, I think I just only saw 2 bottles of liquor there, if I'm not making a mistake.
All right, so he arrived and there was no sign of a shooting that had taken place. Does that explain why he failed to cordon off the area? Because I think later on he said that he didn't immediately cordon off the area as a crime scene.
So that seems to be the reason that it wasn't quite clear where the shooting took place, where the crime scene was, because as you've heard from Mthethwa, he says that it looked as if nothing actually had happened, and that is why he and Mathebula then proceeded to the hospital, which is where they found Kelly Khumalo's mother as well as the BMW that had rushed Senzo Meyiwa to the hospital, but they were then told that a man had died, and Mthethwa actually actually says one of the nurses took them into the room in which Senzo Meyiwa was lying in, and he said that he did recognize that it was Senzo Meyiwa and observed that there was a bullet wound on his chest. And actually, the time that they went back to the crime scene, they went back with Gladness, that is Kelly Khumalo's mother, who was then telling them about what happened. When then they arrived at the house, that is when actually the crime scene was cordoned off, when they actually had come back from the hospital, Sally, which is something the defense has raised as a concern in its cross-examination. But now let's take a listen to Mthethwa telling us about the exhibits or the evidence that was found, in particular a hat that was found at the crime scene. We know that a bullet projectile was also found, as well as a crutch belonging to one of Senzo's friends who was also in the house when the shooting occurred. This is Mthethwa now telling us that it was actually Kelly Khumalo's mother who had pointed out the hat as belonging to the perpetrator.
Isigqoko sasese-dining room kwaqhamuka umama kaKheli wathi isigqoko naso esabola babantu.
Okay, all right. It was not a matter of much of a distance between the items or the exhibits. And with regards to the head, Kelly's mother appeared with the head and said, here's the head, it belongs to these people, or it belongs to the people.
Which people?
The one who came there, my lord, and did what, or committed the incident there.
Can you just verify if Kelly's mother will be called regarding to what the witnesses just said, my lord?
As the court pleases, Sergeant, as we explained at the beginning, just testify about what you saw.
So they wouldn't confirm if Kelly Khumalo's mother is going to take the stand. That's interesting.
Very interesting, Sally. That was something that also caught my ear, that instead of answering the question, the state decided to rephrase their question and then cautioning the witness to only answer in terms of what he saw and not what he was told, because of course that's going to be hearsay evidence, which is why we heard Advocate Mshololo then asking, are we going to hear then from Gladness Khumalo anytime soon? We know that the defense is raising concern that they are not, the state isn't bringing those witnesses to the stand, and that they actually want to wrap up with the police officers, the experts, as soon as possible, so that those who were in the house can possibly be called. But some of the timeline issues that you were mentioning earlier on, Sally, is around the fact that there are contradictions now coming out between the time in which Musia says he arrived and the time in which Mthethwa says that he saw him. We know that yesterday, when Musia concluded his testimony, there was that issue that he was only called to the scene 4 hours, 4 hours after the incident had actually occurred. And Mthethwa says that in fact he saw Musia at the crime scene before the police officer who Musia says had called him to the crime scene, that is in Ndlovu, and that in Ndlovu in fact came with the task team on that evening, where Musia had told us, Sally, that the task team arrived later on during his second visit when he had actually called for assistance. So yeah, you know, it's one of those issues that the court is going to have to decide on itself and see exactly which evidence is more credible over the other.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, by what Musia has said, he was only there 4 hours after the crime, which puts us into the early hours of the morning. So it does seem that that timeline is perhaps disputed or still being put together. Is Sergeant Mthethwa back on the stand tomorrow?
Sergeant Mthethwa is back on the stand tomorrow, and it's actually to clarify those timeline issues. He's been asked to bring his pocketbook that police officers usually have when attending all incidents of any kind, to record what they see, and especially, of course, the timelines in terms of when they arrived, when they had left, because according to Mthethwa, they left just after 10 p.m. when the, what he says, the big bosses, top officials from province and task teams had arrived. They had actually then completed their duties and had left the scene. So it's going to be interesting to actually see what comes out of that pocketbook. Proceedings resume tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for chatting to us. Silindelo Masikane, of course, is covering the murder trial of Senzo Meyiwa. Now, still